Matt O'Malley from District 6. We are here regarding Docket 0444, message and order approving appropriations of $9,486,511 for the purpose of paying the costs associated with boiler and roof repairs at the following schools: East Boston High School, Sumner School K-5, O'Donnell School K-5, Russell Schools K-5, and Tobin School K-8. This includes the payment of all costs incidental or related thereto and for which the City of Boston may be eligible for a grant from the Mass School Building Authority. Said amount to be expended under the directions of the Public Facilities Department on behalf of the Boston Public Schools. I'd like to remind folks that this is a public hearing both on Comcast Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, Verizon 1964, and at boston.gov/citycouncil-TV. At the conclusion of the presentation and Q&A from my colleagues, we will take public testimony. Our sign-in sheets are to my left. Please state your name and any affiliation and residence. We have just been joined by our colleague from South Boston, Councilor Ed Flynn. And at this time, I would like to hand it over to Brian McLaughlin, Chief of Staff from Public Facilities, to outline the project.
Sure. Thank you, Councilor. So the Massachusetts School Building Authority is the state authority that oversees funding of the public school capital projects throughout the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. The MSBA is a reimbursement agency and works with local communities to create affordable, sustainable school building projects throughout the state. It's funded through 1 penny of the sales tax. MSBA has 2 programs. They have the core program, which deals with larger projects, renovations, new school construction, such as the Josiah Quincy Upper School, Boston Arts Academy, Dearborn, and most recently the Carter School. It also has the Accelerated Repair Program, which deals with repair projects. First step in the MSBA process is to submit a statement of interest. That is what they call their application. The SOI allows districts to let the MSBA know that there's a deficiency in their building that negatively impacts their ability to deliver their educational program. In the Accelerated Repair Program, focuses on replacing roof, windows, and boilers. It focuses on extending the useful life of the buildings, but for the fact it may need some new building systems, such as roof, window, or boiler. The 5 schools that you had listed, the boiler replacements at East Boston High School, O'Donnell, Sumner, and Tobin, in the roof project at Russell, were submitted to the MSBA back in February of 2017. That's when we started this process for these 5 schools, and we anticipate a positive MSBA board vote on April 11th for the total project budget of these projects, which is $9,486,511. Excuse me. To expedite the delivery of these projects, the MSBA assigns an OPM and architect to all cities and towns working within the Accelerated Repair Program. During the life of the Accelerated Repair Program, districts have to appropriate funds 2 times. The first appropriation would be for the feasibility study through schematic design, which this body did back in August of 2017. Upon approval of the schematic design, the district is given 90 days to appropriate the balance of the funds for schematic design through construction. As stated, the process for these schools started in 2017, in February of 2017, when we submitted the SOI. MSBA, upon review of these schools, approved them to move forward into the program in June of 2017. August, $600,000 was appropriated by the City Council for the schematic design of these projects. September of 2017, the MSBA assigned the OPM and architect to the City of Boston for the projects. Starting in October through February of 2018, we actually designed these projects. We submitted the schematic design to the MSBA last month, and again, we're anticipating approval of these projects at the April 11th board meeting. In order to hit summer construction, we're looking for the appropriation of the $9.4 million worth of funding so that we could have this bid out in a timely manner, so the majority of the work would happen over the summer while the students are not in session. One thing to note, in addition to these 5 schools that were approved by the MSBA, the Marshall Up Academy project was also approved by the MSBA in June. That's going to be a window project. In the work required and the due diligence on window projects and the time associated with ordering windows usually bumps those projects out of summer. So we had 6 schools approved by the MSBA. 5 will go into construction in the summer of 2018, and the window project at Marshall Up Academy is anticipated to go in the summer of 2019. So myself and John will likely be back before this body in the coming months to seek approval for the total project funding for the Marshall Up Academy as well.
Great. Hi, John. Welcome. Sorry we started without you. You did a great job.
He always does.
No, that was a great explanation and timeline of this project, and we're very familiar with the accelerated repair program, and it's a great that this administration and this mayor has availed us of all those opportunities, the many opportunities over the past 4+ years. So I'm going to recognize Councilor O'Malley for any questions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, most of these aren't in my district, but obviously I think that, you know, every school that we can take advantage of MSRB funds and resources is great for the entire city. So I'm delighted to hear this. So just looking at, I think our sheet, which you probably provided for us, there are 5 schools that we're talking about today in Docket 0444, Eastie High, the O'Donnell, the Russell, the Sumner Tobin, and then the final bullet point talks about the Docket 1001, which was passed last summer, and there are 7 schools, including Up Academy and the Timilty. You mentioned Up Academy will likely come in the next round. Will Timilty be in that same bucket?
No, we have to, so last year, when we submitted to the MSBA, we submitted 11 schools, 4 of which, in the past, there were certain parameters that schools had to fall within to be acceptable within the ARP. And one of those was that the age of the building system had to be over 20 years. In the 2017 submissions, MSBA received so many applications from districts, they had to change that to a 30-year building age system.
So the Timilty was no longer eligible?
There was 5 all in total. Timilty, the Curly, the Kilmer, Chittick Elementary, and the Perry were all not eligible for the ARP because they switched up on us in the middle of, after we submitted them.
So that was my next question. What's the status of the Curly and the Kilmer?
So those were all, they all fell in the middle.
And is this sort of 30-year guideline going to be the new benchmark, or is this just a one-off because there were so many requests?
I think it's going to be taken on a year-by-year basis from the MSBA. This year, it was a 20-year age limit for roofs and boilers, and I believe windows was a 30-year requirement.
So can we prioritize Curly and the Kilmer for the next round of submissions?
Sure. As soon as those dates hit the timelines, we have them ready to submit the SOI back to the MSBA for review, because we visited all these schools.
We've done the work. It's just a matter of waiting.
And it didn't seem like they were going to not invite them based upon the state that they were in. It was just that they had too many applications out.
And is there any concern that while we sort of wait, there could be damage done?
No, preventative maintenance will be ongoing with BPS, so it's not in a state of failure, but they do need to be replaced at a time when the age hits the
when we
MSBA
can, but it's not
requirement.
as though another nor'easter is going to,
Not at this time.
Right. 2 other notes I'd make. First,
John.
the Curly was part of the Windows project where they received the new windows last summer.
Yep.
So they did get the benefit of that. And the components here that we're talking about, theirs didn't rate as poorly as some of the other schools that are moving forward anyway, although certainly they still have to continue to be on the radar going forward.
So the Curly's so that's important. The Curly got the windows. The roof is what we had originally proposed in this round, and with the Kilmer, it's windows.
Right, so the Curly's windows were proposed back in 2015.
Yep.
Because of the time it takes for windows projects to be completed, as Brian was mentioning before, those windows weren't actually installed until the summer of 2017, but they'd received those last year.
Great.
The roof is a different matter because of the age of the component.
Great. Well, thank you both, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Councilor Flynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your leadership on this issue. And thank you, Councilor O'Malley, for your leadership as well. I look forward to supporting these schools. They're excellent schools in Boston. Could you tell me, just as a way of background, the accelerated repair program? Could you just give me a little bit of information about it?
Sure. I think it was probably back in 2010 or 2011, the MSBA, the way that they prioritize projects throughout the Commonwealth was the neediest and urgent moved to the top of the list. So most of the cities and towns were putting forward major construction projects, whether it's large renovation projects or new school construction. And there was a lot of schools throughout the Commonwealth that needed some smaller work but could extend the useful life of these buildings. So they started the Accelerated Repair Program to assist cities and towns throughout the Commonwealth to bring in new boiler systems, new windows throughout schools, and in roofs. The building itself was these buildings themselves are usually structurally sound, but for the fact they may need one of these building components to extend its useful life. And it's helped, I know it's probably a few hundreds of schools throughout the Commonwealth have now taken advantage of this program. In the city alone, the first time the city applied for accelerated repair funding money was in 2015. And since that time, we had 7 window projects that totaled $29 million. We got $16 million in reimbursement from the MSBA. We got 2 roof projects and 3 boiler projects last year approved by the MSBA. Total project cost about $9.8. We got over $6 million in reimbursement. These 5 schools, in addition to the schools that have already been approved, represent another $9 million with about $6 million in reimbursement. The mayor and the city council have made it a priority to try to work closer with the MSBA and collaborate with them because we're seeing such a good return on our investments in these schools in the reimbursement we're getting from the MSBA.
Okay. As it relates to roofs, is there a list of the most needed repairs throughout the school as it relates to roofs that work could take place immediately, or?
Yeah, we work with the PFD works with the Boston Public Schools facilities team to identify roofs, windows, boilers, and other building systems that don't fall within the accelerated repair program, and identify them to make sure that we address them in a timely manner. We're also, with the Bill BPS underway, we also have an idea. We visited every one of these schools, so we have an idea of what systems may be rising to a level of repair or replacement.
Yeah, through Bill BPS, we have the most extensive array of data on all of our facilities that the district has ever had. That's publicly available as well. So that gives us some notion of what building systems across the district need to be replaced, what are in better condition, so on and so forth. We as a district have long had our own approach to that as well, beyond just what was in the Bill BPS side of things. So we do rate our building components on a yearly basis, particularly the larger ones like roofs and boilers. The one note I'd add there is that in some cases there might be some buildings that have a roof that's in need of repair or replacement, but it's not eligible for MSBA, not only because the age of the system might be not quite up to the threshold that MSBA is looking for, in this case 30 years, but in some other cases it could be because the nature of the building as a whole is in poor enough condition so as for the MSBA to say we're not going to reimburse the project for just that one piece of the building when so much else within the building needs to be repaired as well.
Are there any roofs in the schools that desperately need to be fixed immediately? They're at that type of situation where something drastic could happen that we need to fix it immediately. Are there any of those types of schools out there?
The list that we just submitted for approval from MSBA has one or two of those. It escapes me right now which ones they are.
Most recently, in the MSBA, we submitted in February, last month, we submitted the roof at Snowden International. In that, based upon our work with BPS, that rose to the level of needing submission to the MSBA right now.
What was the second one? Is it just Snowden, or was
It was just Snowden right
was it
now.
Snowden? Okay.
And again, we addressed two of them this past summer, the Devon and McCormick. Both of those roofs were replaced this past summer. And a lot of roof work had been done in the years leading up to this as well, independent of MSBA involvement.
Now, even though some schools might not be receiving MSBA funding, are we able to include those schools as part of the capital plan, the budget plan coming up?
We will and we have. So, for example, last summer there were actually 8 windows projects that were completed, 7 of which were partly funded from the MSBA, one of which at East Boston High School was managed from our facilities department and BPS and did not receive funding from MSBA. Clearly, as the mayor has made a larger push toward investing in facilities, a larger push than we've seen in many, many years in Boston, we're more, I guess you could say, motivated and encouraged to tap into the funding that's at the state in ways that the city has not done before, which is to the great credit of the mayor and the school district. But to the extent that we have projects that we seek funding for from the MSBA and are getting denied, we do need to try to think through other channels of being able to prioritize those projects if we can.
Okay. And I apologize for coming in late, but I did hear Josiah Quincy mentioned. Could you give me a little bit of background on what that was about?
Sure. So in addition to the Accelerated Repair Program, the City of Boston is collaborating with the MSBA on core program projects, which is new construction, large renovation projects. So the Dearborn STEM Academy will be opening up in September of 2018. We're going to be breaking ground on the new Boston Arts Academy over in Fenway Park area this summer. The Carter development, the Carter School, excuse me, was just invited into the feasibility study, eligibility period to kind of figure out what the solution is going to be to the needs of that school. Josiah Quincy, this past December, was granted an extension on the feasibility study to explore finding a new site for the Josiah Quincy Upper School. We had a site in mind over in the south end. That unfortunately didn't work out, so the MSBA is granting the city an extension on their feasibility study to find a new home for the Josiah Quincy Upper School.
Okay, and then the final question, you mentioned the Carter School. Is that's the school that primarily deals with special education?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Are they seeking to have a swimming pool built on site? Is that?
That would likely be part of the scope of work that we'd look to introduce into that school. It's generally not something that the MSBA would fund. They don't fund pools, but if it's part of a educational program, it's something that we'd look at.
I had an opportunity several months ago to visit the Carter School. It's not in my district, but just want to pass on to you, they're doing an excellent job of helping our students and try to give them the best opportunity they possibly can through academics and, special education and physical fitness. So, hats off to the teachers there and the administrators for doing a great job with the Carter School.
It's an amazing place.
We'll make sure that gets back to them as well. They really are doing amazing work there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. And John, just for the record, could you state your name and title?
John Hanlon, Chief of Operations, yes, for the record.
Thank you. And just finally, we were talking about the reimbursement, and the rate is still around 65%. Is that about right?
Yeah, 65.47% for the projects that we're voting on today.
Great.
Unfortunately, in projects going forward, our reimbursement rate has gone down with the MSBA.
Right.
So moving forward, it'll be closer to about 62%.
62?
62%.
Right. And many years ago, it was as high as 90?
Yes. So in 2004, the MSBA was created in the new way of funding public school construction projects, came into play, and the maximum reimbursement went from 90 to 80%.
Right. And just to, piggyback off Councilor Flynn, some of his questions on, every year, like, you have audit reports from almost all the schools, right, that kind of go through a checklist of systems and conditions in each school, help, with custodians and teachers and principals kind of contributing. Am I right on that?
Yes and no. In some cases, the larger systems are evaluated on a year-to-year basis, perhaps. Some of the smaller systems, maybe not. But the data that we have from Build BPS gives us a great new tool that we hadn't had before, which also represents a great new start for the school district in that area. So we're already in conversations with PFD on the management of that data, how we're going to update that data. For example, when that data was built, the schools like the Channing, the Condon Latin School that got new boilers last summer, the 7 schools or 8 schools that got new windows last summer, those weren't part of that data set. So now the conversation is, rather than having to build anew this database, how do we make sure that we're updating that database on a regular basis?
Right. Yeah, that's imperative. And lastly, so we got bumped from a lot of the boilers because they raised the eligibility to 30 years. So obviously, these boilers are somewhere between 20 and 30 years old. Right. Are they on the higher end of the 20, the lower end?
I believe a couple of them were like 23, 24.
Okay.
There was one, I think, that was 27.
Okay.
So as soon as they hit, but I mean, if there's a failure, we're going to address it immediately.
Right, of course.
But independent of that, we'd be looking to submit them as soon as we have an idea with the MSBA what their guidelines may be that particular year.
Right. And as you said, it might come back down to 20, maybe 25, right?
Right.
Great. Great. With that, everybody's all set. Thank you for your time and attention today. This hearing's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can I head over?
Yeah, you gonna go? No.
Go for a run? I got a 2 o'clock. I brought my sneakers.